I was thinking getting ready for the podcast and live stream today. There haven't been a lot of some people call them kicker stories, lighthearted stories, lifestyle. I usually try to wrap up the segments with those just to kind of give us a smile because the news is just so intense these days. And I thought there hasn't been a lot of that. And then I rethought it and I said, wait, hold on a second. Karoline Leavitt, widely considered, at least by me in my little head, the best press secretary we've ever had at the White House. Her putting CNN, the entire network, directly into a body bag. That's lighthearted to me. That's a kicker story. That should give us a smile. So, you know what? We're going to make that our kicker story today. And we might even lead off with it. We'll also give you an Iran update, of course. And there's a video coming out of, and I want to make sure I get the high school right. This is about a week old, but it's important. Central Bucks East High School in Pennsylvania that shows you exactly what the real deal is when it comes to young people. Because we've all seen all of the young people staging walkouts, protesting ICE, and probably the Iran, conflict now and all the other stuff. Well, this is a video of the real kids booing the hell out of the kids walking out of class. That's what's really happening, but the media never likes to show you that part of it. Anyway, we'll get to that as well. Thanks for finding the live stream. Wicked Radio Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on X and YouTube and on Facebook. Audio podcast always after that, wherever you get them, and the replays. Let's get to it. Let's start with our comedy. Now, I didn't see this, what happened. Somebody sent me this clip, and I said, what? Hold on, I got to look into this. What got Jake Tapper so upset on CNN? He's play acting. It's always what he does. But love him or hate him, Jake Tapper is a good broadcaster. He just is. He works for that clown show network, and he's a kind of a clown himself. But still, it's kind of rare for him to go off the rails on this. So let's start backwards. I don't know what set him off like this until you look at the clip.
It really is the height of solipsism and narcissism to think that our coverage of fallen warriors has anything to do with how we cover a president. I'm just utterly shocked that Hegseth and
shocked, I tell you. And I saw that clip and I said, well, something must have happened in the press briefing. Look, I'm like you. Who the hell has time to watch White House press briefings unless something interesting happens, right? And then it gets parsed down into a clip and then it gets viral and then we all see it and then we comment and talk about it. It's what we do. Well, I said, well, this must have been a good one to set Jake Tapper off like that. This must have been a good one. And sure enough, it was. Caitlin Collins there, who he was talking to, she is the, how do I say it? She's got the RBF, the resting you-know-what face. She just always looks mad, which is why CNN put her in the press pool. She was the target of Karoline Leavitt's ire yesterday when she asked this question. Now, I went back and I found out, and I said, oh, that's okay. That makes sense. This is what set Jake Tapper off. And he probably honestly wasn't even really upset. But as the face of the network, he has to pretend that he is. You know that game, how that works. But let's go backwards and find out exactly what set him off and how CNN itself as a network got put into a body bag yesterday. We'll take it in parts. Here's how it starts.
Of this administration that the press should not prominently cover the deaths of U.S. service members?
No, it's the position of this administration that the press in this room and the press across the country should accurately report on the success of Operation Epic Fury and the damage it is doing to the rogue Iranian regime that has threatened the lives of every single American in this room. If the Iranian regime had their choice, they would kill every single person in this room. And so we can all be very grateful that we have an administration and that we have men and women in our armed forces who are willing to sacrifice their own lives for the rest of us in this room and for every American across.
Okay, let me just pause right there before we get back to it. That right there would have been a pretty epic statement, I got to tell you. I mean, Karoline Leavitt actually says the Iranian regime, as it stands right now, would like to kill everyone in this room. I like her or not, and I love her. That's good imagery. I mean, that's pretty persuasive right there. That right there would be enough. But no, that wasn't even it. That wasn't even the best part because she lays in on the follow-up question to CNN directly and absolutely puts them in a body bag. Here is the rest.
And for every troop that is based in the Middle East. That's what these...
Hegseth was complaining that it was front-page news about these 6 service members who were killed.
That's not what the Secretary said, Caitlin, and that's not what the Secretary meant, and you know it. You know you are being disingenuous. There is not... We've never had a Secretary of Defense who cares more...
Drones get through where tragic things happen. It's front-page news. I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad. Yeah, as you know, we cover the deaths of U.S. service members under every president.
The press does only want to make the president look bad. That's a fact. Especially you. No, listen to me. Especially you and especially CNN. And the Secretary of of Defense cares deeply about our war fighters and our men and women in uniform. He travels all across this country to meet with them, to connect with them, and your network has hardly ever probably reported on that. You also had the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Chairman Kane, who's a brave patriot, standing alongside the secretary at the Pentagon this morning, again expressing his condolences to these families. And I just told you that the President of the United States will be attending their dignified transfer. So please,
that's not making the president look bad. That's showcasing that.
We expect you to cover that as you should. We expect you to cover that as you should, Caitlin. But you and your network know that you take every single thing this administration says and tries to use it to make the president look bad.
I know it was long, and that was even in 2 parts with a pause in the middle. I know it was long, but tell me that wasn't worth it. I mean, if that doesn't put a smile on your face, how many years, if you're a person that follows the news and you're well informed, and I know you are, how many years have you waited for somebody to absolutely just body them, and specifically her? I loved that so much, and I'm not going to feel bad that put a smile on my face. I'm not, and then I'm going to call that our feel-good story of the day. I just am, because it's so long overdue that somebody calls out these ridiculous, corrupt, propagandized mainstream news networks we have. Because you know my main mantra, and I've said it for years. I've said it to you guys literally hundreds of times. The problems we have now, the media did this. They are the target. The reason why I do this is to point out exactly how corrupt they are. And I always have. The media did this. Because if we had a fair, honest media that actually did real journalism, that wasn't biased either side, I would hate it just as much if it was leaning right all the time. You know, some of them are, but surely not all. Straight down the middle, report news, and let us make up our own minds. That's all we're asking. But they don't. And sadly, I don't think it's going to get fixed anytime soon. But at least in the meantime, we have great stories like that where now you have an administration that's going right after them. And I love it. All right, what was she referring to? Big Pete Hegseth press conference yesterday. So we got to get our daily Iran update. Not to smile about war, not to smile about and take lightheartedly the American service people we've lost, because God love them and God love their sacrifice. But again, this is a different time. And this is a press secretary who talked about some of the achievements in this objective already. What blew me away was how he described, and then I guess apparently at this press conference they had a video of it, our Navy effort. I had no idea, and God love you, and good for you if you did, that we haven't sunk an enemy ship with a torpedo since World War II. I honestly had no idea. I think I never even thought about that, but apparently that's
in fact, yesterday in the Indian Ocean, and we'll play it on the screen there, an American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Quiet death. The first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II. Like in that war, back when we were still the War Department, we are fighting to win. Also, yesterday, the leader of the unit who attempted to assassinate President Trump has been hunted down and killed. Iran tried to kill President Trump, and President Trump got the last laugh.
These are different times, and I am never going to apologize, and I don't think you should either, for enjoying that. Nobody enjoys war. Wish we didn't have to go to war. I hate the fact that we've already lost American lives in this. That anybody has to lose a life. But if you have a War Department now that goes directly after enemies and says so and explains exactly what they do, yeah, I'm going to enjoy that because I like the transparency of it. These are different times. You never saw this before. Maybe it was like this. Maybe if they had mass media like we do now in World War II, you would have found the same thing. Maybe General MacArthur would have gotten up there and done a viral press conference and explained what they did and beaten the hell out of the Japanese. Maybe. I don't know. We weren't alive then, but we're alive now to see this, and it's a different day. And I'm good. I'm glad those people are in charge. All right, I think Tim Walz is going to jail. Or somebody, let me put it this way. I don't know. I can't predict the future. But look at read the tea leaves and what's happening in Minnesota, as we all know, completely uncovered all that fraud, waste, and corruption, criminal activity. But look at how it's all tied in now. And this grilling of Tim Walz yesterday, in fact, I think the name of the subcommittee hearing was Uncovering Fraud and Waste in Minnesota, or whatever it was. They nailed him on so many different things. I think this is why I think he's actually going to go to jail or get charged with something. And probably Keith Ellison, too, the Attorney General. Because you can pick your angle. It could be issuing the illegal driver's licenses. They nailed him dead to rights on that he signed off on it. His signature is on the bill. He did that. Voter fraud. We know about the Somali fraud. We know about the whistleblower threats that he directly made. It was an amazing thing. None of us have time to sit down and watch a House hearing or a subcommittee hearing. We just don't. We're busy. We all have lives. But I think this one clip, out of all of them, out of all the House members that grilled this guy yesterday, Brandon Gill from California, this guy's fantastic. We got some good ones there. There's still a lot of dopes that do nothing, and they basically are part of one big uniparty. Not this guy. This gets to the heart of the matter of why I think Tim Walz is in some deep trouble. And it seems like he knows it.
Yep. And would you agree that as governor, ultimately, you're responsible if tax dollars are defrauded?
Yes, I would agree.
Yep. Would you also agree that calling somebody racist is a serious accusation?
If they are racist, I think it's probably
I'm asking
accurate.
is that a serious accusation to make about somebody?
I think it's just an observation of reality.
All right, well, let's go there. Is it racist for a government official to identify fraud?
No.
No. Is it Islamophobic
To identify fraud?
to identify fraud?
No, I don't believe it would be.
How come multiple whistleblowers have said that your administration told them not to say anything about widespread fraud across multiple agencies because doing so would be considered racist or Islamophobic?
I can't speak to it because it's not anything I would say.
Well, that's what your administration has said and has told whistleblowers. And as you just testified, the buck stops with you. That's what you stated.
Wow. This close to becoming vice president. Never would have known about it. You know that saying they throw at us all the time? It's true. It's like something your mom said, you know? It's like one of those truths of life. Elections have consequences. They really do. They really do. You don't want to spend your whole life surrounded by this stuff and thinking politics all the time. God knows. But it matters. You got to find out what's going on. The people in Minnesota, not the only state. Wait till they look into the fraud in Massachusetts or Rhode Island or New York State itself. Wait till they find that fraud. That's going to make Minnesota look like child's play. But it's case in point. The people in Minnesota went along for so long not paying attention to this stuff. And what's happening in Minneapolis, specifically with the Somali fraud, for so long you got this and you got this guy. It matters. Pick your angle. The Somali fraud, the daycare centers. You have seen some of the numbers in this whole autism funding research fraud that's gone up. It's into the hundreds of millions of dollars. And they can't find any kids that were benefiting from the autism research. You've got the illegal driver's licenses. But what Brandon Gill there from California was grilling him on was there are whistleblowers who have testified on the record who said Tim Walz directly threatened his staff not to talk about the Somali fraud because of Islamophobia. Somebody from Minnesota is going to jail. If it's not Ilhan Omar, it's probably him, but somebody will. Maybe it's Keith Ellison because they signed off on all of this stuff. So, again, heavy story that should put a smile on your face because you never would have known about it. None of us would have. Well, then another one that should. Again, kind of a heavy story, but you should feel good about it because all your favorite media outlets, you probably saw this because you couldn't avoid it. For the past month and a half, it started with the student walkouts. They're storming out of high schools. They're leaving. There was a bunch of big ones in North Carolina for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe they just got the coverage. Whole middle schools and high schools leaving to protest ICE, and they're leaving. You know what the deal is if you've got kids, or you were a kid yourself, a teenager at some point, right? You're looking for any excuse in the world to get out of school. But that's not how it was covered. It was covered by the youth of America are standing up against this harassment of American citizens. They're not American. They're standing up for what they believe in. They really don't know what they're believing in. Well, here's a real story. It took a while for this to come out. And I got to make sure I get the high school right because they deserve the credit. Central Bucks East, got to get the East in there. Central Bucks East High School in Pennsylvania. There was another one of the student walkouts, but this video is going viral, as the kids say, because of what actually happened behind the scenes. Now, according to officials who are there, they got about 1,100, 1,200 students, I guess, in the school. About 75% of them stayed in school and did what they did. But this one is a little bit different. The kids are going to be okay, is my lasting message for you and my takeaway today. Because here's a video of the kids who didn't exactly participate in the walkout. In fact, they actively booed, mocked, and made fun of the kids who were walking out with their protest ICE signs and God knows what else. I think there's even a kid here with a Venezuela flag, I guess. I don't know, but this is the real story of what's happening. Now, imagine I guess that would be, I don't know, Bucks County. Like, I'm guessing that's Philly market. I don't know. The biggest media market that would cover Central Bucks East High School in Pennsylvania. Let's just take Philadelphia, for example. Can you imagine any local yokel news story covering that video of the actual real students, how they feel, booing the kids who are walking out? That would never get covered. But I would bet you there are cameras outside just waiting for the kids to walk out with their signs, and they will pose the report as young Americans standing up against ICE and President Trump's tactics. I guarantee you that's how it was covered. You go on social media and you get the real story that the patriotic kids in that school weren't participating in a walkout, but they made their own coverage because they filmed it with their phones, and then they released it out into the wild, how we were able to get the story. The takeaway is, every time you see something about these kids are standing up against the administration, not most of them, that's just how it's reported. The kids are going to be okay. In fact, you never used to see videos like this or scenes like that. I think a lot of these kids, call them Gen Z or whatever the hell is in after that, they've had it. They've had it with this crap that they see. And you're probably going to hear a lot more from them, the kids who are booing when they're in college. They'll get their voices heard. Anyway. All right, see? They're heavy stories, but you can still have a laugh. Thanks for following me. Appreciate you. Live stream Monday through Friday on X and YouTube and on Facebook. Replay there always. And the audio podcast, wherever you like to get them. I post that right after I click the end button here, and it goes out to the wild. So wherever you get your podcasts, you can find Wicked Radio there as well. We're almost into the weekend. It's Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday. We'll find some of those lighthearted stories, but some important updates too, and we'll cover it all. Make it a wicked awesome Thursday. I'll talk to you tomorrow.